What's going on, music producers? For those of you that didn't get the message on Monday, we're going to be doing Curtspirations in the form of podcast for this entire week. Why are we doing that? To prepare us for the actual Curtis King podcast coming in the very near future. This is great practice. It's a great way to get you guys acclimated to the platform and how we're going to use that. But the juice is still the same. I'm sorry if you missed my face, but the juice is still the same, my friends. And music producers, today what I want to speak to you about is this notion, this terrible, terrible, poisonous behavior of hating on other producers. This has got to stop. Music producers, if you have got a chance to reach my book, The Prosperous Hip Hop Producer, you see there's an entire section that I dedicated to this very topic that I'm getting ready to attack. There's an issue, especially in the producer community, and it's not an issue where it's a majority of producers, but there is a very poisonous and a very self-limiting and a very just disastrous way that producers go about explaining their points of views and explaining how they feel about one another. And it comes off as very hateful, very condescending. And I've been inspired before to speak about this, and I spoke about it in some Curtspirations last week, but it's time for me today to really, really nail home not just what's wrong with it, because I think people understand what's wrong with that kind of behavior, but where does it come from? So first and foremost, what does hate look like in the form of producer to producer? I can give you a great example. As I was playing some of the beats and doing the episode for Critique My Beats, it's interesting to see sort of the condescending nature. And not just one producer. There's many producers that came and said stuff that I had to delete. Some things were a borderline constructive criticism. I kept it up. But there is a disgusting trend. And I know we're dealing with human beings and human beings are capable of this, but there's a nasty trend within our community. And I feel like if nobody else is going to address it, I'm going to address it. There is an arrogant nature that comes with, first, the elite producers. There's a lot of producers that have sort of put themselves on this ivory tower. They've put themselves on a pedestal, and they just rag on every producer below them because in their mind, these producers are below them. Now, I never look at any producer. I have legendary producers that I have the utmost respect for. You know, when I meet them, I definitely tell them how much of an inspiration they are to me. But there's a thin line between that and bowing down. And that's something that I refuse to do because, one, for myself as a man, you know, you have to earn the respect for us to have that conversation man to man. I got to earn the respect of the human being. The human being has to earn my respect as well. I need to know that you're somebody that I can even deal with on a personal level. Before we talk about music, you got to be able to separate the fame, separate the music, separate all of that from the human being. And if you're a jerk, if you're an asshole, I could care less how great you put kicks and snares together. Because at the end of the day, I remember it was a buddy of mine that used to say it. If we in the same room right now, that means we in the same room for a reason. How do we get here? Doesn't matter how we got here. We in the same room right now. So for you to be acting all high and mighty and fancy, you need to cut it out. So that exists, that arrogance, that sort of condescending conversation. You see people that kind of try to hide inspiration within condescending quotes and try to say things that's just like, yeah. If you really dig into it, you can see that there's a lot of insecurity at the base. We're not talking about them. We're going to talk about the producers who are of the community, right? And I'm not telling anybody how to speak. I'm not telling anybody to be like me or to be like anybody. I'm saying that you have to understand there is a lot of danger in the way that you speak about your peers. And what I was getting to the point earlier is that I started seeing that in many producers once I was not giving the kind of critiques that they wanted me to give these producers. They wanted me to say things like, your beat is trash. Next, go to the next one. And I'm feeling like a lot of these producers say that because secretly they want me to get to their beats within the email. So they want me to just speed past it, stop talking, get to the next person. But they don't understand, or they refuse to understand that you and I are completely different, one. And two, I treat these human beings as human beings with respect. And I feel like a lot of producers, unless it's your friend, unless it's somebody I feel like a lot of producers wouldn't say half the stuff that they find the courage to say online to these producers in person. Because once you understand somebody's influence, once you understand their story, which is why I always, when I'm listening to when I do the critique my beats, I always try to get a little bit of a backstory. I always try to check out, where you're from, so I know the kind of swing that you're used to, or even, what kind of music and what really fills out your palette. How was your palette colored? Because your environment influences that. But what I saw in some producers, and it may be some of you that are watching right now, what I saw was just a lot of vile things being said. Oh, the drums is trash. Oh, you suck. You need to stop producing. The interesting thing is that same thing was said to me. And not once will you ever hear me say, man, I got to thank the haters for that. Because the toll that it takes on you in the very beginning, if these producers who say all of that are listening to this right now, take yourself back, right? Take yourself back to the time when you were just beginning, when you were the most insecure about your craft, but you were eager to learn, and you were eager enough to take some of that stuff on the chin, but you were also influential enough, or you were influenced enough to where if somebody said something that was of any kind of influence, it might just damage your growth, right? And sometimes it's not even so much about hurting feelings as it is you're destroying somebody's style before they can even understand it themselves. Who cares if you don't understand it? Who cares if you even think it's trash? You got to let these people develop at their own speed. You got to let them find their way. Sometimes they got to go through the dark with a light bulb, right? Or a flashlight, and they're trying to look for that exit or trying to look for some kind of sign of hope. And that's what I try to be. When I'm doing my critique, my beats, that is what I honestly try to be. Just a glimmer of hope. I know you're going through the dark. I know it's really frustrating. I know there's a lot of sounds you don't understand, a lot of mixing techniques you don't understand. That's cool. It's great of you to even put your stuff out there to be judged. But the thing about it, you know what I've learned over my years besides just doing music? Hurt people hurt people. And when I think about the producer community, there's a lot of individuals out here that are hurt. And so I say this with compassion. I don't say this to be condescending to the condescending producers, but I know a lot of you are hurting. And I know a lot of you won't admit that you're hurting. I know a lot of you will try to, stand behind this tough persona. You'll say some aggressive things about your peers and this and that. That's cool. That's who you are today. But I encourage you, especially if you're not living the life that you want to live, especially if you don't have the success that you want to have. I'm willing to bet that at the root of the problem of why you don't have that success, this energy that you're carrying is a big contributor to that. So I encourage you, allow people to grow at their own pace. Allow them to do them. Stop talking down to people. Our community is full of a lot of hurt people that have had their beats stolen, people that are used to sort of being further down the food chain when it comes to the actual music industry. They're used to not getting credits. They're used to, people finding ways to rap over their beat tags and put it out. They're used to people making money off of their work and them not seeing a dime. There's a lot of producers that are hurt. I can understand and I can sympathize with that hurt because I've been in that position. But when that hurt turns to bitterness, and that bitterness turns towards your peers and not towards action that can actually heal that bitterness, that can heal that pain within you, you're going to have problems for the long term. So regardless of what you feel about somebody else's craft, regardless of what you feel about your peers, encourage them. I'm not here to control people in the way that they say things, but when you're in my community, when you're in this community that was built off of video by video by video, and it was built off of the energy of being encouraging, it was built off the energy of being loving of one another, I'm not going to allow you to come in here and tear down people when it's a safe environment for them. I know we're on the internet. I get that. I fully get that, fam. I know. We're on the internet and feelings will get hurt. Yes, it's a crazy world out here. It's a real world out here. Yes, people out here don't even give a damn and will say anything. I get that. But in these environments that we can control the dialogue, that we can encourage one another, I would like to facilitate more of that. And if I have any control over that, if that means not even just ignoring, deleting your vile comments about people that you've never met, and that I'm willing to bet if you were sitting in front of, you wouldn't have half of that energy. You wouldn't keep that same energy if you actually met these people, right? When you start realizing that you're talking to a 16, 17-year-old who is just going through the struggles that you did maybe 17, 10, 5, 8 years ago. Now all of a sudden it makes you better because you gain knowledge. Come on, fam. We got to do better. There's a lot of that energy that just it's got to weed itself out. And yes, it's very much necessary for the ecosystem. That's something I keep reminding myself is that the goal is not to, eradicate all the hate. Like the hate is going to exist. That gives folks like us who are not hating amongst each other, that gives us something to feel lively about, something alive. That gives us something to feel pride in, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? You have to exist, but just not in this community, right? In this community, we encourage one another. We give each other constructive criticism. You know how much it sucked that somebody who I looked up to in the very beginning of my journey would tell me, your beats suck. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it on the chin. I understand that. I'm just a beginner. What sucks about it? I don't know. Like the pianos is just trash. Okay. Can you elaborate? I don't know. It's just stupid. Like it sounds too piano-y. Whatever the hell that means. There was many things they threw at me about my beats, and nobody was really trying to give constructive criticism. And when I saw them getting frustrated because it seemed like they couldn't even explain in words what their critique of my beat was. It was just a feeling, which is what all of us are operating off of. And how are you to put yourself in charge of somebody else's feeling towards their beat, their music? This is what came out of them, right? And these people could not explain to me what the issue was. They would get frustrated and say, well, you just got to learn the hard way like I did. Yeah, learn the hard way like I did. And this is why cultures die off. But I refuse to let this culture that I love so much in hip hop, this culture, this community that I love with the producers, I refuse to let it die off. But that mentality is going to have it die off. We got to do better, producers. Once again, it's another Curtspiration. Doodle, you need some more of this juice? Please subscribe to the channel below. Be a part of the notification gang. If you have any Curtspiration suggestions that you would like to throw into the Curtspiration suggestion box, go to CurtisKingBeats.com/Curtspiration. We will get to you as soon as possible. Coming back to the topic at hand, I don't even need to elaborate on this. All I'm going to say is that we need to do more. I know it may be very wishful thinking, but we need to do more loving of one another, more encouraging of one another. How do we expect as a community to be respected if we sit around here shitting on each other? If we sit around here talking down to one another? If we sit here and we just got nothing but negative things to say about one another, what do you think is going to be the reaction from everybody else towards us? They look at us and say, y'all can't even respect yourself. Why should I respect you? It's got to start from within. And when we earn that respect from one another, when we do the things that we got to do to be respectable, we'll ask for more. And I'm telling you, in this life, when you ask for more, you will get more. In this life, you will not be full of life until you decide to live life to its fullest. Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com.